Hello, everyone. Hope all is well. I just want to tell my story as it relates to being married to a narcissist. So I met my ex back at a job that I used to work at. Um, I approached him, and what got my attention was how I noticed that kind of like he was working, but he was also off to himself. He was off to himself. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing, but I could tell he really wasn't paying anyone any attention. You know how you can be working, but you're still aware of what's going on around you. And I noticed he was kind of in his own zone. He had his headphones in, and he was just working, going on about his business. Nothing really unusual, but it was unusual enough to catch my eye because I was like, he's really focused on his job. Like he's very serious about what he's doing. So one day I approached him. This time he had his music playing out loud. He had like a little small Bluetooth speaker. And it was just him in the area that he was working in. So he was playing his music out loud. And I caught one of the songs he was playing. I know he was playing like some old school music. I can't remember exactly what song, but it caught my attention. So I tried to spark up a conversation with him. I like, hey, I like that song that you're playing or whatever. And he like, yeah, I like listening to old school music or something like that. But he kept it real brief, and then he just went on about his business. He just continued on working as usual. Now, mind you, most guys or just most people in general will try to keep a conversation going, engage in small talk, but he really wasn't trying to engage in small talk. And he didn't take a clue either that I was interested in him. So I left him alone, and I just went on about doing my job. So some days passed, and I saw him again. And this time there was a car wash fundraiser that was coming up, and he was a part of it. And so I was like, will you? No, I told him, I said, I want you to be the one to wash my car. So can I give you my number? I said, so that way, you can call me once you get set up, and I can make sure that you get my car, because I wanted the money to go to him because it was a fundraiser, but some of the proceeds actually went to the department that he worked in. And I wanted to make sure that the money went to him. So he was like, yeah. And I gave my number, and that was that. And I'm thinking he was going to call me, but he didn't call me. So then the fundraiser was like days down the line. I want to say I gave him my number on like a Monday, and the car wash didn't actually take place until Friday. So I'm thinking he's going to call me prior to that. Again, he still didn't take a hint like, okay, maybe she's giving me her number because she's interested. But he still didn't take a hint. So because I didn't have his number, of course, I had no other choice but to wait for him to call me. And he never did. So I actually ended up not coming to work the day they had the car wash. And so when I came back to work on Saturday, I saw him, and I was like, hey, you didn't call me. What's up? I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm rejected, in a like joking manner. And he was like, no, I was looking for you Friday, but I didn't see you. I said, yeah, I ended up calling out or whatever. I wasn't feeling good or something came up. I said, but I did expect you to call me. And he was like, oh, I didn't know. So, I don't know if you would take that as something unusual, but again, most guys would try to, they see a pretty woman or attractive woman, they're going to try to call, unless they got someone. But he didn't give me the impression that he was in a relationship or anything. But so after we had that conversation on Saturday, he did call me that night. We did end up talking. So now we both have each other's number. And he did end up calling me that night. And we talked. The conversation was good. We talked and talked and talked. Like most of you heard, narcissists, they can talk. And the whole purpose behind is that because they want to know so much about you. They want to know everything about you. So we talked and talked and talked to the point where we literally fell asleep on the phone. And that kind of became a habit for a little while where we would just talk and neither one of us would want to get off the phone. So what I would do is just lay the phone down on my pillow and we would just fall asleep on the phone. That's literally what we would do. We did that a few nights. So after a couple of phone conversations, I'd say about 2 weeks in of us just having phone conversations, I finally invited him over to my apartment. I had my little 1 bedroom apartment. It was just me and my son. My son was, I want to say he was 2 at the time. And that's it. It was just me and my son. So I decided to invite him over. My son wasn't home that night. I had ended up getting a sitter because I really wanted to I wasn't ready for him to, just meet my son or have my son around someone that he didn't know or anything like that. So I decided to invite him over. He came over one weekend, watched movies, we ate, we just hung out and stuff. And the relationship just took off from there. Like the chemistry, the connection was just so strong. And like we just took off. It was like we immediately were like inseparable. We didn't want the good feeling to end. Okay. The feelings were definitely mutual and we didn't want the good feeling to end. So we ended up, being in a relationship. He does at some point meet my son. He hit it off really well with my son. At some point he do meet my family. I want to say the first person he met was my sister because my sister used to come over from time to time to my place, and a couple of times that she would come, he would be there. And so they met, and I can tell she wasn't probably really feeling him. But of course, it's my relationship, so it wasn't a whole lot she could say. It's like, hey, this is who she want to be with. So who am I to, you know, get in the way of that? But I can tell she really wasn't feeling him like that. But then, later on, he started to meet more of my family because my sister, like having like get-togethers and stuff at her house. And so he did eventually meet my brother, my mom, and my brothers. I have two brothers, my mom, and just cousins and the rest of the family. And at some of those social gatherings, now that I'm, out of the marriage, I can now look back on everything and see that in a lot of those family functions or any social gatherings, he would be really awkward. He would be socially awkward. He didn't really know how to converse with, the men and that were there or people that was there in general. I also must mention there was an age difference, only 6 years. I'm actually older than him. So at the time that we met, he was 20 and I was 26. So there's a 6 year age difference. So yeah, back to my family. Met my family, and I don't think some of them didn't really, grasp him or really connect with him either. I remember him sharing with me that I actually taught him how to be social because he would watch me. He would watch how I would conduct business, and just being friendly and providing people with customer service. Thank you. Have a nice day. Just say for instance you out. How you just be polite. Just be a polite person. And so he picked up on a lot of my mannerisms, and I remember him one day saying my mannerisms and just how to be social. And I remember him one day saying, you taught me how to be social. And I'm like, really? And I just thought that was a really interesting compliment. But I was like, okay, thank you. I said, that's just who I am. I said, I always just try to lead with being nice because that's just who I am. I always make a genuine effort to just be kind to people. But I remember him saying, and I thought that was a very interesting compliment. But anywho, the relationship goes on. Like I said, we meet family. I meet his family. His family, of course, they adore me immediately. They love me. I had more of a relationship with his dad than his mom. His mom is more kind of quiet, laid back, reserved, but his dad was the more outgoing one, trying to have small talk and stuff with you and conversation, really try to get to know you. I remember his dad asked me, was I part of a church? What church I went to? I remember him asking what little, we started talking about different crafts and different things that I was into because his dad was crafty as well. And His dad was an artist, and he knew how to draw, and he knew how to paint, and he was just really good with his hands. And my ex-husband, he was the same way. He's really good with his hands. Like, he can draw really good. And so that's how me and his dad connected. It took a while. I didn't really start connecting with his mom until after his dad passed, and that was much years later down the line in the marriage. That I started. That's when she kind of started to open up, and I now understand why now, and I'll touch back on that subject later. But like I said, his family adored me. So of course, you go through all the love bombing, the dating, the clinginess. I even made a joke where I used to call him. I even gave him a nickname. Where I used to call him Velcro. If you ever watched Tamar and Vince's reality show, Tamar used to call Vince Velcro. And I adopted that nickname and started calling him that. And because that's literally how we were. We were inseparable. You saw him, you saw me, and vice versa. We was always up on each other, always doing things together. Even when we would be in the house together, we would be just right on each other. Sex every day, any chance we can get, And usually new relationships are like that. So again, I didn't know nothing about narcissists or anything like that. I didn't start learning about any of this information or putting two and two together until I was out of the marriage, and I started realizing, oh, I was married to a narcissist all this time, and that explains why so many different events started to occur down the line. So like I said in the beginning, the love bombing, or the idolization, as they say, was going on, and it was sweet. It was sweet. Like I was showered with attention, going on dates, very attentive, just everything that you would think you would want in a relationship. So 6 months into us dating, he asks me to marry him. We get married. We have a daughter together. We had her about a year later. I had a child, a beautiful little girl who's now 8 years old. And so that would say everything moved quickly because we were married for 9 years. So like I said, and so my daughter's now 8. So yeah, like a year later, I had my daughter. And my son, immediately started liking him. He has a great relationship with my son still to this day. He has a pretty good relationship with my son. Well, of course, he's not in the house, so he's not as attentive as he was when we were, together. It's more like I get to him, he spend time with them pretty much when he feels like it. Let's just be honest. But in the beginning, he had a really good relationship with my son. He definitely made it a point to spend time with him. Like I said, we get married, we get us a place. Everything is sweet. We get us a house. I move out of the 1-bedroom, of course. Get us a nice 3-bedroom home. And everything is great. Everything is just going well. And fast forward, I want to fast forward a little bit. So he's always been kind of reserved, kind of, off to himself, insecure. He had a lot of insecurities. He has a lot of insecurities. He was always unsure of himself, always second guessing himself, because he can rap as well, and he's really good at it. But I just couldn't understand why he would be so hard on himself. It was like nothing he did was good enough, And I was, of course, because I'm optimistic. I'm a motivator. I don't want to see nobody moping and groping, especially when they're naturally good at something. But I noticed I always had to kind of cheer him up and lift him up and be like, hey, you are good. You this, you that, which is, typical narcissist behavior. They constantly need to be praised. They constantly need to be reminded how good they are, because they are extremely insecure people. And so they constantly need that admiration. That's why they need it so much. That's why they want you to always praise them and tell them how good they are, because they are extremely insecure. They doubt themselves around the clock. But I just never could understand why he was so hard on himself. But there was nothing that he could do that was good enough. Even with his drawing, he would always compare his drawing to his dad's. Oh, I'm not as good as my dad. I can draw, but I'm not as good as my dad. And I'm like, okay, but you're not supposed to be your dad. Your dad draw the way that he draw. You draw the way that you draw. I said, so stop comparing yourself to your dad. You know, your dad has his own drawing techniques. You have yours. But again, he was always hard on himself. But over time, he did start to develop a fan base when it came to his music. So his confidence did start to pick up more. You know, more people started to know him for his music. So of course, the more people know you for your music, the bigger your social circle become. And so his social circle started to grow. And of course, as that social circle grew, so did the admiration. So did the constant need for attention, you know. And I would notice that a lot of times, just like he would do with anything else, he would compare himself to other people. Oh, I'm not that good. I'm not as good as this person. I'm not as good as that person. Or why this person isn't supporting me. I always support them. Or why this person didn't invite me to their showcase. You know, and I'm always, whatever. I'm always supporting people, so on and so forth. So he went through that phase a lot where he was comparing and, you know, looking for people to have his back and things like that. Um, but over time, again, like I said, he got better and better and better. Now, there was one situation where he was doing music, and because at one point we had a studio in the house, so where he would record or whatever, because he knows how to mix his own music and all of that. Mind you, I supported all of this. I supported all his dreams, all his hobbies, whatever it was that he wanted to do. I was 10 toes down. So there was never a thing where, I felt like, okay, that's not my thing. No, I was there for it because he was good. He's talented, and I love music. I enjoy music. So all his showcases and performances and things like that, I was there. His music, I streamed it, I shared it, whatever. And I remember there was one he was doing a song with a girl, and she came to the house, and I was getting ready to go to work. And I remember him making a comment like, basically insinuating like, was it gonna be a problem with her being there? And I think the only reason why he asked was because somebody else put it in his head. By this time, he had met another guy he had became really good friends with, who was like his homeboy slash manager. So he would kind of help him with the marketing side of music, because at that time he wasn't good at doing all of that. My ex-husband, he wasn't good at like the marketing part when it came to his music. He knew how to make great music, but he didn't know how to really get it out there. So his friend, who's still his friend to this day, he would help him with that part, with getting his music out there and stuff. And that day that girl was supposed to come over to do the song with him, I think he was the one that put it in his head, like, she finna leave and she finna come over there and record a song. So that's why it was strange when he asked me, like, it's like, basically, was it going to be a problem? I'm like, no. Like, I said, that didn't even cross my mind. Because at that time, like, I trusted him. Like, 1,000%, not 100%, 1,000%. Like, I'm secure in who I am as a woman. The insecurities didn't start to come to much later on in the marriage. But when, the beginning of our marriage, I wasn't insecure about anything. I was very secure. And not for 1 second would I have thought that it would be an issue. You have an in-home studio, so of course, in order to do collaborations, sometimes people have to come over to record. So not for 1 minute did I think me going to work and her coming over would be an issue. And so that was that. I said no, and I went on to work. And, and I got back, asked him how it went. He said everything went good, whatever. And that was the end of that. So like I said, there was no insecurities in the beginning until much later. So let me share with you a situation where, so this gets into the sneakiness. So this show you again, because I was such a secure person, because I trusted him so much, it was a lot of things I didn't notice. To me, being in your phone is kind of like, okay, whatever. That's the norm. A lot of times, a lot of people spend time on their phones. So I never looked at it like, oh, he's spending so much time on his phone or nothing like that. But like they say, most of the time men are sloppy. So you can easily look through their phone. They're not going to delete anything. Usually everything you need to see is going to be right there in plain sight. So one day we was actually, I don't know if he was getting ready to go somewhere or we both was getting ready to go somewhere. I can't remember. But whatever the case may be, I knew he was in the shower, and he left his phone on the ironing board. And I remember something just told me, check his phone. And I checked and I noticed that he had been communicating with the girl through Messenger. And at first it was innocent, they was just talking about music, like music related. And she was like a friend of the family or whatever. So she was someone that he'd been knowing. And so it was just like a generalized conversation. And so I kept reading. And then I saw what she said, can you come over and make me feel better? And he didn't respond right away. And I think she I think she asked again. And then he said, yeah, I'll come over and make you feel better. So, when I saw that, my heart dropped. I immediately got upset. I confronted him about it. Of course, he lied it away. Oh, it was nothing. I was just kind of going along with it. Of course, I wasn't going to go over there and make her feel better. She had just lost somebody, somebody had passed, and she had, I think, a family function afterward. She invited me, but nobody went, and I didn't even go. Like, he just started talking all around the world, telling me stuff that had nothing to do with the information that I just got. And, so I'm still like, okay, but why would you text her this? I don't know. I'm sorry. I was just going along with it. You know, Mind you, he gonna use this excuse for a few other situations that I'm gonna tell you about too. So this kind of became that. This is kind of like his go-to excuse. I just went along with it, and not only that, he tends to have conversations with people around death. It's usually somebody done lost somebody. Somebody done went through some type of trauma, something traumatic. So keep that in mind as well. So okay, I let it go. We make up, because again, you go through things in relationships. You go through things in marriage. Of course, it wasn't technically. I guess you could, people consider that cheating too, and it is a form of cheating. But the act hadn't taken place. But who knows? If I would have never saw that text, it probably would have taken place. Or who's to say that it hadn't already taken place? You know, for all I know, maybe he had already had sex with her. I wouldn't know. But I let it go because again, I didn't have the proof, and I'm one of those people. I need proof. Yes, you can have an intuition on something, you can have a hunch, but I'm waiting. I need evidence, solid evidence, because of course, all he was gonna try to do is explain it away. But like I said, we made up or whatever, got past that hurdle. Um, Things got back on track, so on and so forth. So I did notice, like over time, there would be situations where he changed jobs a lot too. That was another thing. He changed jobs a lot. So that made our finances kind of shaky because of that. Because you can't really plan your bills out like you need to when the income is not consistent. So there was a lot of times where he'll work a job for probably a few months, then he got something else. Work a job a few months, he got something else. And I noticed he will always get into it or have some type of conflict with the supervisor or the manager. He just had a real issue with dealing with authority, you know, and he would get a quick temper. He would get a real bad temper when it came to like someone trying to tell him what to do, if he felt like a man was trying to challenge him on his decision making. So because of that, he did change jobs a lot, and he would work through temp services, which I didn't understand. Is like, you don't have to go through a temp service to find a job. Like, you have the skills to apply for any job just like anybody else. But me telling him it for some reason just wasn't clicking. He was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. This is what I've been doing, going through temp services. I'm going to keep doing it. So that's what he kept doing for a while until it finally, I guess he finally grasped the concept of like, hey, I could just put in an application like anybody else. So there were some cases where he had really good jobs. One job he had was really good. And let me rewind back because I actually I actually, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I didn't have to work any of the pregnancy. And I was even able to stay home up until my daughter went to pre-K. So my baby was with me until she was 3 years old. So I had and that was a really good time to just really bond with her and really give her that one-on-one time of my children in general, that one-on-one time that they needed as their mother. Because at that time he had a really good job and he was able to take care of all the finances. And I remember him sharing with his aunt, and she got an attitude. A couple of his family members was upset about that. And I'm like, I said, how your family gonna get upset about how we run in our household? I said, we don't ask them to help pay anything. So why is it an issue that I'm staying at home to take care of our family, you know? And I'm like, well, what did you say, you know? And that was another thing. When stuff like that would occur, he wouldn't put his family in their place, you know? They would just kind of have free range to say what they want to say. And my whole thing, I was telling him, I'm like, but you got to tell people, like, this is your family. This is your marriage. I'm your wife. And so there was a lot of cases where I felt like he wouldn't put me first. Even when it came to like doing stuff for his parents, which is nothing wrong with doing stuff for your parents, but a lot of times we may have plans, or we may be in the middle of something, and his dad can just call and be like, hey, I need such and such. And he'll just stop what he's doing and run over there. I'm like, you can't tell your dad to just give you a minute. I'm not saying you can't go over there. I'm not stopping you from doing anything. You're a grown man. But I'm like, we're in the middle of something. Can we just finish what we're doing first? Then you go over there. And so for a minute, he like he couldn't understand that. But at some point, he did start telling his dad, like, hey, let me do this first, and then I'll be over there. But that went on for a while, where his dad would just call and say, oh, I need this. Can you come over? Because he had got so used to him being in the house. Because that's another, let me rewind back. When we met, he still was staying with his parents too. So they was used to him being there and being hands-on and helping with a lot of stuff, because his dad was disabled. So anything he needed, he was really the go-to person. Not his mom. His dad went to him for everything, because that's just how he was always that person. Because his siblings, they had grew out of, they had got older and moved on out the house. So he was the last one to move out. So a lot of that responsibility did fall on him. But I did say something to him about that, because I'm like, you're married now, you have your own family, so you can't just jump up every time your dad call. But like I said, over time, he did kind of get the concept. Of course, he still went over there and did things as he should. Like I said, his dad was disabled, and his health just eventually just got worse. And his wife, she would do what she could, but there was just certain things that she just wasn't good at, or just didn't want to do, just because her son had been doing it for so long. So she just continued on to let him have that role, because I feel like there was a lot of things she felt like she didn't know how to do, because she didn't want to do them. So we went through that little battle for a while, where I had to tell him, like, you just can't jump up every time your parents call. Like, you have your own household as well. So there were cases where I felt like, where he should have spoke up for me and made his family more of a priority. He didn't. I talked about the different job changes. Like I said, that played a big role in our finances. So a lot of times I would have to, work extra hard. And that too was what led me to have to go back to work. Because like I was saying, I was a stay-at-home wife and a stay-at-home mom for some time. I was a stay-at-home wife for some time. But I ended up having to go back to work, because the good job that he had, he ended up losing. And our finances just, it wasn't what it needed to be. He wasn't spending his money like he should. He could have continued to maintain, but there was a lot of times when I would come to him and ask him, hey, do you have the money for this? And he wouldn't have it. And I just couldn't understand, like, I see what you're bringing in, because I see your pay stubs. I see what you're making. And I've added up everything, our costs, our expenses, everything that's due. So you have enough and then some to make sure everything is covered. But he was kind of sneaky with his finances. So there was a lot of things I wouldn't know. And he would help his family out from time to time. But I guess he didn't feel like I needed to know. So there was a lot of secrets and a lot of conversations that need to be had that wasn't being had. And I don't know if it was because at that time I was looking like, well, maybe he just don't fully grasp the concept of being married. Like, these are conversations we're supposed to be having. You can't take out your children's mouth to always accommodate other people. And like I told him, there's nothing wrong with helping your family, but this is your household. Your household comes first. And so I had to tell him that a couple of times. Again, this should be common knowledge, but I used to have to reiterate that a lot. So I went back to work, and he found another job, and things got back on track. So another issue we kept running into was a vehicle. Every time I notice, every year, tax season, get a car, have it for a couple of months, it go back, and now we back at square one. Now we trying to figure out how we gonna get to work, or either I would have a car and he would have a car. Now his car would always be the one he would always stop making payments on his car. So now we back to one car. Now my schedule has to be adjusted because we're back, we're sharing one vehicle. Of course I work, he work, and we have children, so on and so forth. So now I have to, make adjustments, that's no problem. But it's like I had to keep telling. He did this for a minute. Actually, throughout the marriage, we never kept a car for long. And then there was even one point where we went years without a car. We went a couple of years without a car, and we would just use his mom's truck. Like his mom, it got to the point where his mom had to take me to work, or there would be times, or she would let me use the truck to go to work, and so on and so forth. So we would share his mom's truck for years. We shared his mom's truck, and it was just ridiculous. Again, the finances just got worse and worse. And so that was one thing we always dealt with. The money, just finances. And again, money could never be accounted for. I'm like, well, what you doing with your money? What's going on? Mind you, I'm getting child support for my son. I'm working, and I'm ending up having to use my son's child support to pay bills and stuff, which ain't nothing wrong with it, because at the end of the day, child support is just for that. It's just support the child, and therefore, a part of supporting my child is providing a roof over his head, and with providing that roof, there comes lights. There's food. It takes food to feed a child. It takes shelter, and so on and so forth. So that support is what that's for as well. But it got to a point where it shouldn't have been a constant thing, But I felt like a lot of the well, it's not like I felt like I did. I ended up having to help a lot with the finances, because a lot of times he just wouldn't have it. He just was bad. He just bad with money. Tax season would come around. You want to buy all these game consoles and games and stuff. Have them for a couple of months. Then when you need some money, you go pawn them. And I'm like, why you keep... Then that became like a habitual thing. And I'm like... So he would buy these game consoles and games and just, miscellaneous, just random stuff. And then when he need money, he would pawn it. So he made that kind of like a thing. And then he was like, well, I grew up, that what my daddy would do. He needed money. He would pawn stuff, or, and I'm like, okay, but that's not something that you should strive for. Like, you're supposed to want to do better, not, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to continue on those type of habits, because that's not something to be proud of, to have to, keep going to pawn shops to get money, That's okay from time to time if you run across little hard times, which everyone does, but that's not the norm. That's not normal to always run to pawn and stuff because you need gas or whatever. Like, that shouldn't be a consistent thing, but that became a thing. Still to this day, he does that. But though he picked up a lot of bad habits, I noticed, from his dad, because that's how he grew up. So a lot of the ways that he grew up, he brought into the marriage, His family struggled a lot. He talked about how, a lot of times they didn't have money. a lot of times, and how, he came from a big family. His mom has 5 children, so he knows what it's like to be, have a big family, and just, you know, not having or making what you do have work. And so again, he brought those same concepts into our marriage. But I always told him, like, hey, you supposed to want to do better than your parents. You want to supposed to be able to provide more for your family and for your children, so that they don't have to grow through poverty, so they don't have to grow up the way that we grew up. You're supposed to want more for your children, not the same, not strive for the same thing. Like, your kids deserve more. They didn't ask to be here. So, and I was trying to explain that to him or whatever. So maybe he got it, maybe he didn't. I don't know, because the finances didn't improve. Like I said, we would do good for a little while, and then it would just go right back to where it was. And like I said, for years we went without a vehicle. He just had got a truck this year that we both shared, and he still has that truck to this day. Cause I don't want no parts of it. And so we were sharing it, but I'm actually in the process of getting my own vehicle, because I did let him kind of just, I was just so confused by, I was just, again, when you in a narcissist relationship, especially a marriage, you don't realize the subtle controlling tactics. You don't realize the subtle manipulation tactics. You don't realize the different things that they do to alter your point of view or your opinion. Because I'm a very secure woman. I'm an independent woman. And he know that when he met me, he knew I had my own. I had my own place. I had a car that was paid for, y'all. A car that was paid for. And because the finances were so out of whack, I ended up having to pawn that title on that car 2 times. The first time I was able to pay the title back. The second time I wasn't, and I ended up losing that car, because that's just how bad we were that's just how bad our finances had got, And I remember him even making a comment like, "You had more without me than you did with me." I'm like, you know what? You're right. And the crazy thing about it was, I didn't even notice that until he pointed that out. So he knew, him being in my life, he was bringing me down. He knew, being in my life, he was altering the way business was being done, because he knew I was a go-getter. He knew I took care of things. He knew I was the responsible one in the marriage. He knew that, but didn't care, because he continued on making poor choices when it came to money, being a hothead, nobody can't tell you nothing, and so on and so forth. Like, he had people in his life that was genuinely trying to help him, who was genuinely trying to wanted him to do better for his family. And it was just like going in one ear and out the other. So I'm going to fast forward to when his dad passed. So when his dad passes, he went through a very deep depression, to the point where he said he was about to off himself. And of course, during this time, because of what he was going through, I really couldn't address a lot of the issues that we were just having in our marriage as a whole, because he was so fragile. At that time, I don't know if he was putting on or not, but I know at that time, because he was so fragile, a lot of things that I wanted to address, I couldn't, because it just wasn't the right timing. And in the midst of this is where things got really bad for my marriage. Really bad, because then he ended up cheating and getting this girl pregnant. So he has twins. He ended up getting the girl pregnant. She had twins. So yeah, got some outside children. Well, they're not outside anymore because we're not together. But it had, during that time of me being married, got some outside children. And of course, his excuse again, like he always say, oh, I was, depressed, vulnerable, or, oh, I was just going along with it. It was no big deal. Like, because there was text messages, all this stuff, because the girl, she actually was the one that told me. She reached out to me on Facebook Messenger, which is to this day why I have my social media. Some of my social media has been deleted and some of it is deactivated, because he has left such a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to social media. I don't even want no parts of it. I don't even know how to approach social media, especially Facebook. I don't even know how to approach it because there's been so much negativity associated with it. But the girl, she was the one told me. Mind you, by the time she told me, this girl done had the babies and everything. A whole year had passed. So mind you, he had been holding this secret for an entire year and didn't tell me that he had got this girl pregnant. And I noticed that his behavior had started acting kind of strange prior to her telling me. I had noticed his behavior had changed. I noticed that he was doing a whole lot of crying, a whole lot of just, I'm not in the mood to do this. He had stopped doing music. I guess that's what they call a narcissist collapse. That's what he was going through at that time. He was going through a narcissist collapse. So like he had just stopped all the stuff that he did to make it that he would do to that brought him happiness. He had stopped doing, like going to the studio, so on and so forth. And probably, let me just elaborate on that studio thing. There also came a time period where he spent a lot of time at the studio as well. Where he was doing that studio, who knows? But there was even times when he spent a lot of time in the studio. And I remember having to say stuff to him like, hey, I understand you're doing music, but you can't be at the studio all night long. Like you're married. You still have to have respect for me and your household. And you can't just come in at any time of night because that's how you feel. That's what you feel like you should be doing. Well, I got a project I'm trying to complete. I got deadlines because again, this friend slash manager, he was telling me I need to do this and do that. So he did kind of hinder our marriage too, because why would you encourage someone to stay out late to finish a project when they got a family? Just like, cause mind you, his friend, you're married too, and you wouldn't stay out all night like that on your wife. But then again, I don't know, maybe he do. But my whole thing was, that we went through that phase as well too, where he just felt like it was okay to just stay out all night, and I'm like, it's not. But okay, fast forward, his dad passed. He fell into deep depression. He get a girl pregnant, and he tried to blame a lot of it on at first his dad passing. I was depressed, and we bonded because I asked, I was like, well, how did all this play out? Well, she had just lost, I think he said she came to him. She started trying to have a conversation with him about death and stuff, and she knew that he had lost his dad. So she basically was coming to him with advice. Mind you, the girl been liking him. Had been trying to come on to him, and he knew this, and everybody at the job knew that. But you still decided to sit down and try to have some one-on-one conversation with her. And things kind of went from there. He said they actually had sex on the van because he worked for a courier service. And he actually was supposed to be training her too. Now, mind you, he knew she liked him. And he even told me, he said there was a lot of times where he told them to keep him separate from her because he knew she liked him. And he said, so there was a lot of situations where I kept telling them, hey, move me to another department because I know this girl liked me. She keep coming on to me or whatever. And so one day they was actually so they ended up having to do a couple of routes together. And I remember him even coming home talking to me about this girl. Like, man, they got me working with this girl. She's so lazy. I literally do the whole route myself. Like, she just sit there. She don't get out and do nothing. I do everything. And I remember him coming home complaining about that a couple of times. I said, well, have you said anything to them? Your supervisor and manager, mind you, the girl, I think his manager, supervisor, was actually her mom. So, of course, she already felt entitled that she could do what she want anyway. But long story short, in the day, you're in control of you. Regardless of how strong somebody coming on you, can't nobody make you whip your thing out and have sex with them. I understand that what he was trying to lead with, but at the end of the day, you got to have self-control. You lack self-control and you lack discipline. Guys try to talk to me all the time, and like, first of all, I don't even make eye contact with men. You in a relationship, you married. There's just some things you don't do. You don't engage in, for one, inappropriate conversations. Two, don't be making eye contact with people because people take that as flirting. You start looking at them, they think, oh, she looked at me. Maybe there's a chance. So it's just certain things you don't do. But that's what he was saying or whatever. And He said they had sex on the van, and then text messages came out. Of course, like I said, the girl reached out to me. So on Facebook Messenger, and she even screenshot a lot of the messages that they were having with each other. So at this point, you're no longer consoling her about her losing a loved one. Now you all in. So what's your excuse now? Because at this point, you're all in. Y'all having conversations. Y'all texting, you telling her you want to eat her booty. You telling her that I'm boring. You telling her that I'm dry. I mean, he done went through the devaluation phase. You talking down on your wife, or now ex-wife, and you done exalted her. You lifted her. She done became your new supply now. And that hurt me more than the cheating. Because I'm like, now you attacking my character. Now you're making it personal. You're making a personal attack on me. And that hurt me more than the act. Because I'm like, at this point, you really giving her the okay to put me down and attack my character. But this is what narcissists do. When they get with a new supply, they put whoever they're with down. They talk about the person that they're with to that new supply. And the only and real women wouldn't fall for that. These are little girls, that tend to think this type of behavior is cute and acceptable and okay. These are insecure women who they don't care if you married or not. They just happy to have somebody in their face. And they take that stuff, they think that stuff is cute to entertain them. Because the first thing a real woman would say, well, if she this bad, why you with her? If these are all the things you don't like about her, but then why continue to stay? Because those would be the things I would ask. You know what I'm saying? If I was talking to a guy or entertaining a guy that was in a relationship or married, I'm going to say, well, if you putting down your woman that you with, why you still with her? Evidently she must be doing something right because you still with her. But narcissists like low-hanging fruit. They like entertaining bottom of the barrel because they're easy targets. They can easily get what they want. They can easily get the sex that they want. They can easily get that instant gratification, the attention that they want, the desire that they want in that moment. And they don't have to put in no real work. So that you tend to deal with, especially you dealing with someone for years over time. That's a habitual cheater. And then if you do get a glimpse of this new supply, you realize, like, what? This what you cheated on with me with? And that's what I thought when I saw the girl. I'm like, that's what you cheated on me with and got pregnant? Like, I couldn't believe my eyes. Now, granted, looks ain't everything, but I'm like, bro, there was no thought put into this at all. No thought or effort. So, and that really crushed me. It crushed me to find out that, because like I told him, I said, I never saw it coming. I said, I know we had issues in our marriage. We had our little differences and things. But I said, I never expected that you was cheating on me. Yeah, he had done sneaky stuff in the past. Like that text, that was the only evidence I had ever found on him. Was that text where he was texting that girl, I'll make you feel better. And that was like years had passed prior to this incident happening. So that's why I was like, I didn't even see it coming. I didn't know you was moving like this, bro. I didn't know you was moving like this. So that was another thing that really crushed me because I had put so much trust in him. And all the while, you hadn't did something like this behind my back. And I went through phases where I felt like I thought I could forgive him. I thought it could be worked on, but it's hard to come from something like that. You can't come from from something like that. You can't come from something like that. And the women that do stay, it's usually because it usually becomes transactional at that moment. At that point, usually the wife been already checked out, and she's just kind of there to maintain the, raise the children, so that my children can be in a 2-parent home, or the kids can be in a 2-parent home, or the husband, he pays for everything. So, usually at that point, it just becomes transactional. At that point, it was, but for me, it wasn't nothing transactional because we still were struggling. Finances still ain't where they need to be. So for me, it wasn't nothing to look forward to no more. But I did try to make it work. Like I said, I went through waves of trying to make it work, trying to heal. And we even talked about, well, we need to, go back to church. We need to start we need to make God a priority in our marriage. That didn't happen. We had that conversation, but it didn't happen. Instead, he thought taking me on trips and buying me things and taking me out to eat compensated for what he did. And I had to have a conversation with him, like I said, I had went through phases. One minute I wanted to be with him, then I put him out. I want to say we separated about 3 times. We separated at least 3 times. And it finally just got to a point where I'm just like, I can't do it. And that last time that we separated, I actually started to see someone else for a little while. For about 2 weeks, I started seeing someone else, and he started talking to somebody else. And but even then, because I was so used to being in the marriage and being with him, I tried to make it work one more last chance. But at this point, he hadn't discarded me at that point. I was discarded. He was over me at that point. But this was the manipulative tactic that he used. When I said, okay, let's try to work on it again, he came back to the house and pretended like he was working on the marriage for the sake of having somewhere to lay his head, to basically reap the benefits of being with me, but not being with me. So the sex, having someone to lay his head, the cooking, and so on and so forth. But he would be in and out still. He would come home for maybe a little bit during the day, and he would be gone for the rest of the day. Then he'll come home, change clothes, take a shower, go back out. Then he'll come back and go to sleep or entertain me for a little while, and then the cycle will continue. So so when he came back, he was never working on the marriage, like he was saying he was. And then, so I guess he realized that he couldn't keep up that facade anymore. And he ended up telling me like, hey, I can't fake this. I'm not, I feel like I'm faking it. Which feeling, you are faking it. And he was like, I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. And then initially I asked for a divorce. I had pulled back the divorce and everything. Like I said, when we were separated, the last time that we were separated and I started seeing someone else, I ended up filing for a divorce. But then I was like, no, I want my family back. And then I never pushed the papers through. And I was like, I want to fight for my family. I want to try this again. And so when he was pretending like he wanted to come back, and then he ended up telling me like, this is not what he want, he ended up asking for a divorce. And so now, so then he filed. And which is fine with me. I don't care what order it go in. Just I just want to be out of it at this point. Because I genuinely was trying to make it work, but I had to come to the realization like, baby girl, you deserve better, and you got to love yourself more. And a lot of times you keep going back and you keep trying to make stuff work because it's familiar. And that's all it was. Because when I really sat down and thought about everything, nothing was going to change. Nothing was going to change. He had showed me, and that's what they say, the person that you see at the end when dating a narcissist or in a relationship with a narcissist or being married to one, the person that you see at the end is who they always was. That person you saw in the beginning, that was a representative. That was a persona. That was that mask he was wearing. You hear about the mask that narcissists wear. That's what that was. But that rage, the negativity, the manipulation, constant praising, and that all those are the true traits of them. That kindness, that was him mirroring me. Like I told you, he even said he was social because of me. I taught him how to be social. I taught him a lot of things because of just the simple fact that when he met me, he was still living with his parents. I was out on my own. There was a lot of things he just didn't know how to do. So he did learn. He learned a lot from me. He learned a lot. I'm the one that gave him his footing on how to be a man. But But the person you see at the end is who they were all the while. And I remember him when he was acting like he was trying to work on the marriage, like at the end. I remember him even saying, like, I can be a butthole if I want to, but I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to, I'm trying not to be that way. And I'm saying to myself, be that. If that's what generally resonates with you, be that. Don't put on for me because you feel like you protecting me and my feelings. You're not protecting me and my feelings. Be who you truly are. Be yourself. Because I know it's in you. I know that little ugly head is eager to stick out. But it was a lot of things that just transpired at the end. Like I said, he had to start talking to somebody, and he wasn't going to stop talking to her. That new supply, he wasn't going to let her up. And if the whole thing was, he kept saying that we're just friends. And I'm like, boy, you must don't know. I know what friends mean. I said, the only reason why you saying y'all are just friends is because you're still, at that time we were still married. I said, that's the only reason why you're leading with we're just friends. Because that's as far as it can go right now. You know what I'm saying? That's as far as it can go. And during that time when we were separated, we would share different things with me. And I remember him sharing with me, how she was trying to sleep with him the first time they met. And he was spending a lot of time with not only her, but her family. He won over the family. And see, that's what narcissists do. They don't just try to win the girl over. They try to win your family over too. They really try to solidify their spot, so they can really, drain everything out of them, because they're opportunists. So once they see anybody, one thing about a narcissist, they don't just get their narcissist supply from whoever they're dating. It can be friends, it can be family, it can be co-workers, strangers, it don't matter. Whoever's going to exalt them, whoever's going to feed that admiration, who's going to feed their ego, those are the people they're going to gravitate to. And that's fine, but everybody don't have to see for themselves. And so all I got to do is sit back and just do what I need to do for me. And that's continue to take care of my children and work on my healing and work on my relationship with God. Because out of all of this, I can say the most beautiful thing of it is I did reestablish a relationship with God, because I was so consumed in my marriage that my prayer life had went off track. Going to church, just being in tune with God had got so off course because I was so consumed with the marriage, to the point where I even had developed anxiety, because I had got to a point where I just didn't want to argue anymore. I didn't, because he would argue about the smallest things, and he was always just upset. And to the point where I literally started having panic attacks, because when he would call, I would be fearful of, oh, here we go with another argument. Oh, here he go. He finna complain about something else. And that's how I developed anxiety. And I didn't even realize that's what the anxiety had stemmed from until I got outside of the relationship. And I said, that's how I developed anxiety. And he just developed a lot of bad habits. He had started smoking heavy, drinking. And, I started indulging in some of those things because I was so stressed out in the marriage and didn't even know I was stressed. Because of finances, because, it got to a point where we wasn't spending quality time with each other anymore. All the dating and, him being loving on me and just caring for me like he used to, all that stuff started to fizzle out. And I was like, well, dang, what is going on? Like, I understand sometimes you become complacent in a marriage, but I ain't know it, it get like this. And then I even remember, now that I'm thinking about it, I even remember him saying something about that. Like that he feel like a lot of the stuff we used to do is not there no more. I remember him basically saying in so many words that he was discarding me then. He was ready to discard me then, but at that time I didn't realize that's what that was. I just thought, hey, when you're in a marriage, you get comfortable. And in a lot of cases you do. That's why a lot of this stuff is hard to pinpoint whether or not you with a narcissist, because a lot of these things that you experience in a marriage anybody can experience. And you don't have to be with a narcissist to experience them. You know, you can become complacent in a marriage. That don't mean you're with the narcissist. You can, the sex can decrease because now you have children. Now you have other obligations. Now there are other things that are getting in the way of that intimate time. So guess what? You have to work harder at it. Those are normal things that marriages go through. So a lot of those things I would associate with, oh, I'm with a narcissist. So that's why I never threw that word around loosely. I hear a lot of people talk about a narcissist and, oh, I met a narcissist and all this. But of course, you don't hear about these terms, that word, until after a breakup. So I'm thinking, well, they just bitter. Oh, okay, they're bitter about the breakup. But that's never a word that I wanted to just throw around loosely, because without, having knowledge or understanding of what it really meant, because I don't want to just put a name on or a title on something or diagnose someone with something, because narcissism is a personality disorder. It's not learned behavior, as some people like to excuse it away. No, it's not learned behavior, because learned behavior can be unlearned. But a personality disorder takes serious treatment, especially when this person has been like this for years. You got to think about, when you think about your personality and what makes up your personality, there are some things about you that are just fixed and that nobody is going to change. Now, yeah, you may bend a little bit for the people that you love and care about, but at the end of the day, who you are is who you are. At heart, you're still who you are. If you're a homebody, you find comfort. If your personality, if your personality resonates with being a homebody, then that's what you are, a homebody. But from time to time, you will go out and be social, because you may want to go out and support a friend or or something with your job. But at the end of the day, that doesn't take away from you being a homebody. So with the narcissist, like I've watched so many videos, and I've seen so many, solutions, quote unquote solutions, that people try to come up with, or do they change, and so on and so forth. And it's like, rarely. Like, if you know who Dr. Romney this lady has done extensive research and countless therapy sessions with people who are narcissists and those who are trying to heal. So she know. I trust her. Her statements and what she has to say, because this woman, she has been doing this for years, and this is her work. This is her life. She does this for a living. That's her profession. So I value what she say over anybody who just getting on YouTube making a video. Like, and even these self-aware narcissists who do videos. And I say to myself, I say, this just like a narcissist to get on and be like, you don't know me. Let me tell my story. Since I'm the one with the mental illness, I can tell you better than anybody. And which is true to a certain extent. But again, it's still that ego that they're fighting, because they still have in their mind, who are you to try to tell me about me? You know what I'm saying? It's real weird how when I watch some of these self-aware narcissist videos, I'm like, they're still being true to themselves. They're still being them true selves, because they still feel like nobody can't talk on them but them. And that's true narcissist behavior. Can't nobody speak on me but me, because who knows me better than me? True narcissist behavior. Like, there aren't people that can study you and learn about your behavior the same way narcissists like to mirror people, because they don't have a personality of their own. They pick up and they bite and eat off of other people's personality, other people's behaviors, and create this smorgasbord and call it their own. That's what they do. That's what they do. Like with my ex, the person he's talking to here has adopted so many of her ways and stuff. Granted, I can say she does keep, she has helped him as far as like joining the church, but he joined for all the wrong reasons. He gave his life back to God, but he did it for all the wrong reasons, for all the wrong intentions. He only did it to impress her. He only did it to impress her family. He didn't do it because he truly wanted to have a relationship with God. He did it because he wanted to impress her and get closer to her. But hey, God don't care how you get there, as long as you get there. It ain't where you begin, it's where you end. So if he, it is what it is. But the intentions behind it was way off. But like I said, out of all of this, I can say my relationship with God has become stronger. Like I said, I got baptized. I got baptized again, and my children has gotten baptized. We all in the church together. And like I said, in the midst of all this chaos and ugliness, my relationship with God has grown tremendously, and I know He's happy. I know He's happy, and I'm happy because that's who I should be exalting. That's who I should have been exalting. That's who you put all your trust in. That's who you put all your love in. That's who you put your all in, period. God is always number one. You keep God in your life. You keep God. It's like you hear people say sometimes. If you keep God first in your life, everything else will follow. All the things that we try to make a priority, or the things that we feel like is more important than God, that's when you start to create chaos. That's when you start to create friction in your life, because now you're trying to play your own God. That's not to say that you're not supposed to get up every morning and be responsible and have, and get up and go to work and just do your everyday, go about your day-to-day things. But you're not supposed to put no one above Him or before Him. He is the number one source. He is your go-to for any and everything. And as long as you do that, everything else will follow. And when I say everything else will follow, that means a good quality marriage, good quality relationships, your finances, your occupation, your health, all of those things will come into play. Your leisure, the activities that you want to do, even if it's, say you want to travel the world, God will make that possible, because that's something I strongly desire. There are so many places I want to go and bring my children with, because for so many years we was given, again, the breadcrumbing. We was given empty promises of going this place and going that place, and those things just never happen. And I said, I'm not, with my children, they ain't got to worry about that no more. I told my son, who's now 15, well, he's 14. He'll be 15 in November. Who's now 14. Like I told you, he met my son when he was 3, going on 4 years old. My son is now 14. That's just how long we've been we had been married. We just recently divorced. I told my baby, y'all ain't got to worry about that no more. I'm gonna make it a point to take you to all those places that we've always wanted to go to. We're gonna go to those places now. Mama gonna make it happen. Trust me. You ain't got to worry about nobody just telling you what you want to hear. And, okay, yeah. Knowing good time well, they're not going to make it happen. They're not going to put the money aside to make it. They're not going to work the extra hours. They're not going to save up, because you got to think about narcissists only do things that serve them, or things that's going to make them look good, or if it's something to benefit them. Going on a family trip, they're not getting it out of it. In their mind, they're thinking, well, what I'm getting out of it. So they're not going to make a priority. Narcissists are very self-serving. There's a lot of situations where there'll be things I want to do, and he would just do what he want to do, and they're not punctual. They don't respect your time. There were a lot of times he would pick me up from work late, and then when I say something about it, oh, whatever, I'm here now. We brush it off like it ain't nothing. Oh, I'm here now. But mind you, when there would be times where I would have to pick him up, I always made sure I'm on time. He'd tell me what time to be there. I was there. But the other way around, but see, that's the thing. They don't like when you give it back to them. They can do it to you, but you can't do it to them. But that's my story, and I will be back with future videos to share more, because this video is already long enough. So I will be back to share more details and like really break down more of the things that I experienced throughout the marriage. And so, and how, I believe it's very important to give like real time scenarios or real life scenarios with these phases that being in a narcissistic relationship go through, because there are phases. And the phases, I want to say, idolization, devaluation, discard, and hoover. Those are the 4 phases of being in a narcissistic relationship. And idolization, of course, that's the love bombing. That's when you get all the loving in the beginning, the dates, they just consume you. They engulf your whole life. And then the second one is the devaluation. That's when they start, putting you down, taking shots at you, attacking your character. Just being mean and mean spirited, always trying to find fault in everything you do. And not just with you, it could be your family, it could be how you parent, it can be your job, because that was another thing I noticed too, that I felt like he would compete with me when it came to certain things. But we'll get into that in another video. The third phase, the discard. That's when they're ready to move on. That's when they're ready to kind of dabble into something else. That's when all the cheating come in. That's when all the different women in the text messages, because it always start off with a text. They got to see how far they can go with you first. They got to test the waters first. So that's the discard. And then once they done played around and they get bored with that little toy, now they want to come back to you. That's the Hoover. That's when they start stalking you. That's when they start looking all on your social media, trying to see if you're still interested in them, trying to see if they can still get their foot back in the door, because they know you that main supply. You's the one that did everything for them. You's the one that held down the home front. You's the one when they needed money, you gave them money. And you like, don't worry about it. You ain't got to pay me back. You's the one that was there for them. You's the one that held. You's the one that was making them look good in the public eye. So now that's why they hoovering, trying to see if they still have access to that. But like I said, we'll get into those 4 phases later on down the line. But my main thing was I just want to kind of give y'all the base of this whole relationship and just give you my story. But again, as videos roll out, I'm definitely going to share more with you. So thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you in the next one.